The standard way to construct a circuit, including prototype circuits, is to use a printed circuit board or PCB. This can be done by the hobbyist, but it's a somewhat involved process to which there are several different approaches. You can view information about these in other YouTube videos about making printed circuit boards. In this video, I want to describe some alternative, simple, quick and dirty methods of producing prototype circuit boards. The most common simple method is to use a push-fit breadboard as shown on the screen. Here all the rows are connected together with a break in the middle. Similarly, the longer vertical column at the edge of the board is connected and usually used to distribute power. This means that two components or wires pushed into one of these connected rows will themselves be connected together by the row. Breadboards like this are useful for trying out simple low-frequency circuits. However, they do have several disadvantages. Firstly, they're somewhat unreliable and temperamental. Connections often stop working if wobbled about. Secondly, because connections aren't welded together, they can have a high resistance between them. And finally, all the closely spaced conductors generate a lot of parasitics, which means that this is an unsuitable method for prototyping high-frequency or radio circuits. Another method of prototype construction is Beetle Board. This is a widely used method in the UK. The top of this board is plastic with holes drilled through which wires can be slipped. The underneath has copper strips, so rather like the breadboard, two components in the same row are connected together. This overcomes many of the issues with the push-fit breadboard, but is still susceptible to parasitics and therefore limited in frequency. A variant of this, which is even simpler, is a plastic board which has holes drilled through but with no copper strips underneath. Here the wires on individual components can be twisted together underneath the board and then soldered. A very useful and efficient way of rapidly prototyping a circuit is to use a blank piece of plastic and adhesive copper tape. This tape has copper on one side and glue on the other. The tape can be cut up and stuck down onto the plastic backbone to create pads, and the components soldered directly onto these. Thin copper foil or copper sheet can also be used like this and simply stuck down with glue. Another simple method, although a slightly more messy and bulky one, is to nail copper-plated panel pins, which are just thin nails, onto a wooden base and solder the components between these nails. Similarly, a ready constructed plastic strip can be bought with metal tags already attached, and this is called tag board. It was particularly popular in older equipment from the valve era. The components are soldered between the tags. If you are a younger hobbyist who is perhaps not allowed to have a soldering iron or can't afford one, or perhaps you live somewhere where a soldering iron is not readily available, and you also cannot get a hold of a breadboard, one innovative way of constructing circuits is also worth mentioning. This was developed by the Reverend George Dobbs for use with scout groups, and it uses plastic screws and collars on a wooden baseboard. Here, the collar traps a wire underneath it and allows us to connect up the various parts of the circuit together. An alternative to this is to use block connectors which electricians use to join wires together and simply slip the components under the various screw terminals.